my little angel. Are you ready for today's story? Very good. Today's story is titled, The Strange Stocking. Let's begin. Once upon a time, on the outskirts of a town covered in year-round white snow, there lived a little girl. Her home was beneath an old, fallen pine tree, where the roots rose above the ground to form a hollow like a small wooden hut. That was Anne, a girl who had been an orphan since she was very young. With no relatives to turn to, her only possessions were a few trifles discarded on the streets, and some dry twigs neatly stacked to start a fire. Every morning, she tried to wake up very early, walking along the edge of the forest in a thin coat that reached her heels to gather dry wood. It would be a wonderful day if Anne found a few mushrooms or some sweet berries, but such things rarely happened in this frozen land. In the afternoon, Anne's real work began as she headed into town. The firewood she gathered helped her earn a few coins for a meal, or at least, this was when she could find something people had thrown away at the end of the day. That day was a day of heavy snowfall. Every house was silent and closed tight. Anne trudged through the narrow alleys but found nothing. The snow had drifted above her knees, burying everything in sight. Just as she was about to turn back with an empty stomach, Anne suddenly saw a fragrant wooden carriage with no driver rushing toward her. It stopped right beside her. Stepping down was a beautiful girl about Anne's age, with soft curly hair and eyes as deep blue as the ocean. She wore a red cotton dress and wool stockings that reached above her knees. Strangely, each stocking was a different color. The left was black and the right was white. The strange girl knelt to straighten her stockings, and then the driverless carriage sped away. Seeming used to this, the girl didn't even bother to look where it went. As if they were old friends, she walked straight to Anne, who was still standing there dazed. She pressed a piece of candy into Anne's hand and pulled her toward the center of the town square. "Come on, play with me," she said, her voice urgent as if she were in a hurry. Anne had never had a single friend. After a second of hesitation, without further thought, she immediately ran after her new companion. That afternoon, the square, usually so cold, became strangely warm. The two girls laughed and jumped just like any other children their age. While other children were tucked away safely inside by the fireplace, these two cared nothing for the freezing cold, playing as if it were a spring day. As dusk fell, tinting the snowfields pink, the two children seemed tired. They lay stretched out on a snowbank, as if sunbathing on a tropical beach. "Today was so fun, Snowzie." "Thank you," Anne said softly, eyes turned toward the sky, letting the heavy snowflakes settle on her hair. Turned out that while playing, the two children had learned quite a bit about each other. Snowzie lay beside Anne, also looking up, dreaming. "If you had one wish, what would you wish for?" "To have many friends," Anne replied. But then, as if realizing something wasn't quite right, she hurriedly corrected herself. "No, just one friend is enough." "You have me already," Snowzie smiled. "Orphan children usually wish for parents." "Do normal children wish for that too?" Anne asked, then felt she was wrong again. "Oh, that's silly. Who would wish for things they already have, right?" "Yeah, but there are plenty of silly children out there." Snowzie turned to her friend with mischievous eyes. Anne also turned and caught her friend's gaze. Then, the two children looked back at the sky and laughed out loud, as if they had found something captivating up there. Suddenly, the sound of a church bell echoed from afar like a cold breeze. "They ring the bells late here, don't they?" Snowzie sat up. Yeah, I'm not really sure, but it seems later than usual today. Anne sat up with her friend. I have to go, my carriage is here. Snowzie looked toward the end of the street, where the carriage from earlier was gradually gliding toward them. Anne felt a flash of sadness but still smiled at her friend. Will we meet again? Of course, very soon, Snowzie replied, kneeling to take off her black stocking and handing it to her friend. Take this, hang it up. Tonight I will send you a gift. The carriage arrived. Anne didn't understand, but she still held the stocking. Her eyes followed her new friend as she climbed into the carriage and vanished into the thick rain of snow. Anne returned to her familiar home. She built a small fire and hung the stocking on a pine branch that drooped right next to the hollow. The wind whistled through the leaves, but Anne didn't care. She just stared at the stocking, her mind filled with countless questions. What is the gift Snowzie mentioned? How can a gift be sent through this stocking? Or is the stocking itself the gift? Lost in her thoughts, Anne forgot she hadn't eaten anything all day. The candy Snowzie gave her was still in her pocket. Time passed, the moon reached its zenith, casting silver light over the forest. Anne's eyelids grew heavy. Sleep overcame her, and she drifted off, still clutching the hem of her coat. In her slumber, Anne suddenly heard a rustling sound. The small wool stocking began to swell, growing longer and curling as if something were inside. A small hand poked out, grabbing the pine branch. Anne's skin crawled with goosebumps, her mouth hanging open. A small head emerged. Anne thought her heart would jump out of her chest. Finally, Snowzie crawled out from the stocking, just like magic. Anne froze, eyes wide at the friend standing before her. Then, as if waking up, Anne rushed to hug Snowzie as if they hadn't met in 1,000 years. Snowzie laughed mischievously. Do you think this gift is attractive enough? Beyond wonderful, Anne replied. But how is it possible? It's nothing. Do you want to come to my place? Today is my birthday. Snowzie spoke quickly, as if crawling out of a stocking was perfectly normal for her. Before Anne could understand, she looked back at her hollow with a pile of trifles and twigs, as if searching for something. Snowzie took Anne's hand and pulled her toward the stocking still hanging on the branch. Taking the stocking down, Snowzie expertly pulled it over her head and soon vanished inside. Before Anne could do anything, Snowzie's hand reached out and pulled Anne in. Both disappeared into the stocking. The space around the fire returned to silence, with only the cold wind passing by, the crackle of the half-burnt wood, and the strange black stocking lying still on the snow. In the blink of an eye, they emerged from the other end of the white stocking. Anne went from one surprise to another. Everything seemed different from her daily life. Still white snow, still cold wind, but everything was strangely warm. A wooden house, a small bed, a fireplace, a dining table, and everything Anne had never dared to dream of. Today is my birthday, so it's your birthday too, Snowzie said wittily. From now on, you stay here with me. Anne nodded slightly, her eyes stinging with tears. She wanted this to be her new home. Could this be a dream? Anne didn't care anymore. To her, this was better than any dream, more miraculous than any wish. Since then, the mysterious land on the other side of the stocking had the added sound of two little girls laughing. The other stocking still lay there, but people never saw Anne return. Some said she got lost while gathering wood. Some said she left the frozen town for a warmer, better place. Some said they saw the two girls playing that day and were sure someone had taken Anne with them. No one knew the truth. But from then on, Every year on that day, the townspeople would hang stockings by the fireplace, as if waiting for the wood-selling girl of the past to visit, bringing them a small but warm flame every freezing night. The story ends here. Now, close your eyes and sleep tight, my dear. Good night.